Hi everyone, meteorologist Ed Valley here. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you got to spend it with your friends and your family, and everybody's healthy on your end. And we're back at it here today, and we're starting here with the radar, and it's a pretty boring radar, for being honest. And really not much outside of a sprinkle or a flurry later today in parts of the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, and a couple flurries along the coast in the Northeast as well. But largely a pretty dry pattern coming up here over the next 7 to 10 days. So what we're going to be focusing on here is kind of this medium range pattern through the middle of December, because there's a lot of uncertainty here, but the overwhelming trend here is warmer, especially in the central U.S. That's great for field work, for producers. Not so great when looking here at energy demand. There's going to be a pullback, no doubt about it, coming up here over the next 10 to 15 days. So with that being said, let's kind of go through this, and we're going to notice here through today into tonight a few very weak disturbances traversing the ag belt here. Notice a couple sprinkles on Wednesday in parts of the northern ag belt. That'll move into the northeast Wednesday night to Thursday. And then you see another one, very quick moving, Thursday into Friday. And really, as we head into the weekend, just a couple, you can just see these polar disturbances just rippling through the flow. And yeah, maybe early next week, a week from now or so, we get a bigger coastal storm in the east, but that's still, again, 7-8 days away. A pretty solid storm signal, though, so that's something we're going to watch. And then another risk here in parts of the prairies and plains here around early next week or so. But again, you see the progression here. I'm just going to roll through the next 10 days. Look at how quick the pattern is. It's progressive. There's not a lot of blocking. There's not a lot of big, huge storms that we're seeing developing. So I want to talk about that for a minute, and I'm going to start here. And we're looking here at the Pacific jet stream at about 30,000 feet. Actually, a little bit higher than that, maybe 50,000 feet. And we're noticing a pretty strong jet stream. And the key here is, as you look into the longer range, typically you can see these kinks in the jet stream. That usually allows for different things to happen downstream across the U.S. You know, if we can pump this jet stream up into Western Canada, obviously downstream Central and East U.S., we're going to be cold. But when you have a big trough or a flat zonal jet stream in the Pacific, it doesn't usually bode too well for cold. Okay, so looking at day 10 here, you see how it's pretty zonal. Day 15, pretty darn zonal here. And it's pretty strong, right? So the thing here that we need to be aware of is, I believe this is going to have an influence along with the MJO as to how cold or warm we are nationally. You know, we're going to have this, as long as we have a raging Pacific jet stream with little high latitude blocking, it's hard to get a lot of cold into the United States for a long period of time. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is this high latitude blocking issue, like we just talked about. So what we're seeing this week is something that we've been talking about for a while. We called it a battle royale between the North Atlantic and near Alaska, right? And we're seeing what happens when the Alaska part, the Greenland block kind of wins. And the result is you still get that zonal flow coming in to the western U.S. and central U.S., but with this block, there's just enough troughing to keep it cold in New England and parts of the Northeast. That's what we're seeing right now. But watch what happens by day 5. See how this block is starting to weaken and this trough is starting to move out? As that happens, and you'll see it more so by day 7, you know, we are going to still kind of get periodic cold spells in the northeastern U.S., but look at by day 10. You see how the block near Greenland is basically going away? And the result here in the 11 to 15 day will be a much more progressive pattern like we talked about, and that develops a ridge in the southern and eastern United States. This is classic La Nina. It really is. I mean, it's a warm pattern, a progressive flow. But notice by day 15, it is starting to get colder in the northern plains and parts of the Pacific Northwest. But you look at the day 15 temps, a lot of the U.S. is quite warm here, okay? And it's unanimous on all of our data. It really is. It's widespread. So it's hard to find much cold here through day 15 unless you're in New England over the next 5 to 7 days. It's going to be a warm pattern. And we've been talking about how when you have these low heights in Alaska and you have no blocking near Greenland, this becomes very progressive and it opens the door for some warmer risk. And When you look at the teleconnections, right? So we'll start with our PNA that's ridging in the west. You want this positive to get widespread cold. It's negative. NAO, you want it negative. It's positive for the most part. EPO, you want it negative. Mostly positive. Okay, so this just from a teleconnection standpoint is not very favorable for cold. Looking at the MJO, we are going to start seeing a more active pulse coming through into 6 and 7. And what does that yield? Well, phase 6 is exactly or close to what we're seeing now, where you have the colder risk in parts of the northeastern U.S., right? And you see the temperatures there reflect that. Pretty close to what's coming up here. But look at phase 7. Phase 7 has more blocking in Alaska, which is not being shown on the models right now. But notice how the cold is favored in the west and in the plains. It's not favored in the east. And you look at the temperatures there, you can see that right clear as day, right? So when you look at this pattern around day 15 and you see those heights showing the ridge in the east, that's something that lines up. Now, you see Alaska on the European and on the Canadian, much lower heights near Alaska, right? But the GFS is trying to poke at least some higher heights into parts of Alaska down, as we get into the middle of the month, that might bring more cold into the plains and upper Midwest. But again, until we can see more solutions that line up here, it's hard to get overly confident in that, right? So it's going to be a warm stretch here over the next 10 to 15 days. There are signals that we are starting to see that could lead to some cold coming back into the plains mid-month. That's kind of what our December forecast is banking on at this time, if we're being completely transparent, right? And just to kind of show you where we're at for December, currently, this was just updated today. We did warm it up here in the central and western United States. Still cooler than normal here in the Northeast, but again, a lot of this hinges on a back half colder stretch in parts of the central and eastern U.S. So this could still be updated in the next few days, but we wanted to just provide you an update with where we're at. Generally, we are going to be warmer than normal here through day 15, but we'll have to kind of watch these 16 to 20-day trends in the new European weeklies that are coming out this evening, and we'll update you here on Wednesday. Have a great week.